Yo.
All right. I don't know what was going on, but I know you ain't got much time, but essentially what I want to say is number one, I appreciate what you do.
Hmm.
You know, I understand a lot of what you're going through. Like a while ago, you were just mentioning, you didn't say his name, but you mentioned the story of scripture. So you're talking about, Yarborough and the emphasis there. But
No, but I know they
okay,
have an actual program or a seminar called the Story of Scripture where
mhm,
really it's Mark Bailey, the former president, who's doing that. Now, this Story of Scripture was not given to me before I had this before. Matter of
mhm.
fact, we go back from the very first Bible study that we did here. That was what I was saying, and then once I met DTS, oh wow, this is where
Yeah.
they do this. So it was like, wow,
Did
okay, that makes sense. Okay,
Did,
cool.
did you ever come across Charles Baylis in any of your
I,
writing?
I have to. I've got to read some of this stuff now, and I don't have to cite, but I can cite some of his
Right.
stuff for this large paper. But yeah, I do. I do. Matter of fact, I got it. I got a book by him somewhere around here. So
Yeah. So he had a lot of influence on that too, and of course Elliot Johnson. But anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about is, as you know, I watched your debate with Mahler, if you want to call it that, and with AK.
mhm.
I thought it was a smooth move that AK, came with the scholars and the receipts, but it's not the end of the story,
Well,
and
yeah,
like
but
you,
but but here's the problem, and I think you can appreciate this. I don't have the time to vet and cover your scholars on the fly. And
right,
it just dawned on me, why not ask the guy? And the guy's like, that's not what I said. Because when I noticed what he said was, he says the
the
ume,
Ume,
the way he
yeah,
phrased ume by itself. Well, I before he brought that up, I said ume by itself doesn't do anything. The ume, what does that mean? Nothing. But what is it emphatically negating? And so my only issue with the Greek is, am I applying it correctly? Because folks say, well, you don't know the Greek that well, you're misapplying it, yada yada yada. Well, okay, if I'm misapplying it, what do all these people that write these lexicons and these Bible dictionaries and these textbooks and these grammars, how do they apply it? Well, so far the exact same way. And so if you do like Michael Brown and you give a scholar, first of all, the guy's not a scholar, a Greek scholar. He's a scholar, but not a Greek scholar. And then his rationale for why he doesn't agree with the other interpretation of John 10:28 is because he says it's implied. Well, how and how are we? Tell us by using the Greek. That's why I wanted to be a Greek grammarian. Anybody can say I disagree. Okay, well, what do I
right,
do with that? I disagree that layman is nowhere near as adorable as me, right? Your wife might say otherwise. Okay, well, we
yeah,
get
right.
nowhere. We get nowhere with that. So show me, Corey, as you look at this Greek, this is where this is wrong. This is how I'm not a Greek scholar, and nor am I trying to be one. I can read it, and if I'm wrong, fine. Show me how I'm misapplying this Greek, and then where is what you're saying there in the text, and that's all I've been
Well,
after.
they're not going for grammatical answers, and let me tell you why. Your mind is on grammatical conditions. Their mind is on semantic conditions. They say that uh, if a sheep stops following, then that condition will not be met. Just like you said a while ago, that if uh, uh, if a person stopped believing, they would burn in fire. John 15. I know you don't believe that. I understand when you make that statement, you're making it in a second class condition. If this was true and it's not, then this would
Yeah,
follow. I understand that. The issue is that they're viewing the sheep follow and all of those things like that. They're viewing them in a certain way. They're taking follow like you, customary habitual, rather than gnomic, because it could be argued that follow just is referring to the metaphor of recognizing the claims of the Messiah. And it's not necessarily referring to the lifestyle after that. But regardless of that, my point is that's where the disconnect's happening. They're making a semantic condition. They're saying the nature of a sheep is it can stop following, and they're basing that off of other things, like for example, Ezekiel 34, irresponsible shepherds, that type of idea.
Hmm.
The issue the issue that I think needs to be made clear for, and whenever future grammars come out, they're going to have to make it very explicit that whenever they're talking about the rule and how it applies to John 10, what other things are involved in there, because an interpretation of a passage does not just depend on grammar alone. There's a principle where grammar determines doctrine, but there's other ways to convey meaning,
Hmm.
and that's where the disconnect's going in, you know.
So
And
I've always wondered this. I've always said this.
uh,
Um, there's first of all, there's a reason why he chooses of all the words that the Lord could have chosen, he chose the term sheep. Especially for them,
mhm,
they understand what they understand how a sheep. Like if you use the word rock, they know what a rock. We know what a rock is. It's not spongy and fluffy. So he used the term sheep, and we know how sheep are. And there's a reason why, because sheep are stupid. Sheep can be sheep and do stupid sheep stuff while being while being shepherded. And so the onus in this case is on the shepherd, and he's telling us what his sheep do. He's describing sheep. Now, is there an opening for sheep to go a certain way, go astray? Well, not in this text, it's not. And then we see him come back and say, "They shall never." If we say that the impossibility of perishing is there because we're negating a subjunctive, then the possibility is gone. And so I asked, I forget who it was. I asked, I said, "How would you, if I could tell you that Jesus said it's impossible for any of his sheep to ever perish into the future, what would you say? Would you agree that you can't lose your salvation?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, that's literally what he said." That's not what he said. Okay, well, tell me what that means. Well, it doesn't mean that. And the problem is, people come to the table with an argument already ready. The conclusion is how they base the argument. Well, wait a second, that's not how we do things. In other words, I'm going to be Calvinist as I read this text. I'm going to be Arminian as I read this text. I'm going to be free grace. I'm going to be Lordship salvation. Whatever it is, if that's how I start off the text, well, then I'm going to make it say what I want it to say. And I understand sometimes context helps determine what the Greek is saying too. Sometimes the Greek is not perfect, just like Hebrew is neither. Sometimes it might change depending upon how you view the context. I get that, but this is one of those ones, Charles, where I've looked and looked and looked, and I think this is the reason why John 10:28 it bothers people to no end, because they cannot come back and say this is what this text is saying in the Greek. And so I've got to throw
yeah,
in, well, that it you have to keep being a sheep. You have to keep following. Where does it say that in the text? Well, it doesn't. Well, I think it's what's implying.
well, yeah, and see, the thing is, number one, I don't deny how the emphatic negation is going on. Number two, considering biblical theology and antecedent revelation, I do believe that passages like in Ezekiel and other things like that, pastoral language, is informing that text. I had a debate over John 10, and it was more like an exhibition match because I'll debate anybody if they ask, to generate research. Uh, and whenever they bring up a challenge. So the thing is that I debated John 10, and my position that I took, it's not about salvation at all. It's about new covenant. But God is faithful to his covenant, and by implication, God is faithful to his promises. So I do something similar that Hebrews 6 does, where it talks about his two impossible things, that God cannot lie, and he sworn by his oath,
Hmm.
referring to the Abrahamic covenant. I believe that that's what John 10's doing. It's using the language. Anyway, I know it takes too much time, but
I
if
understand
I
that.
would like for you at I would like for you at some point to take a look at that debate in your private time, and evaluate. There's lots of stuff I want to
How
pick your
okay,
brain
okay. How
about.
long is it? How long? Because you have 5 hour videos. How long is it?
I understand, yeah, because most debates are 3 hours, but but you just study my opening. That's all you gotta do. But I
Okay,
mean, you ain't gotta do
send
it.
me you have my email?
I've tried a couple of them. I never got any responses, but
Well,
I understand that.
I have 4,000 emails that I have to go back through. I tell you what, though, send it to me. Put a
All
comment in
right.
the deal. Say that, hey, Corey, I sent you that email, and then I'll go
All
get
right.
it, and I'll check it out.
All right. The other thing I just want to say is,
Mhm.
it ain't about debating. I respect your exegetical ability. In some ways, I would say we're cut from the same cloth. I'm not going into detail about that, but my point is that if you ever want to have a formal discussion on a particular issue or passage or however you want to do this, man, we can do it on SFT or come on your channel.
On what?
It's going
What
to
is
be
that?
respect Standing for Truth. That's the channel I debate on.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but I'm just saying, you won't have all these other problems that you've had with some of these other guys.
Mhm.
Uh, so
I, I
I
don't
just
I,
wanted
I
to
don't even have
mention
a
that to you.
problem where we're having a debate and it's a stalemate, because I think it's also good to see, well, wait, why are we having this stalemate? And if it can make me
This is
better.
just like writing papers. That's how I look at it.
I don't think
You
that
know.
people get that though. I don't think that people say, okay, for example, earlier when we were talking about the John 15 stuff, okay, you can't have it both ways. You cannot say that this is for just the disciples until we get here. I'm sorry, it's for everybody until we get here. Now it's just for the disciples. Well, I take this text that he's primarily speaking to the disciples. And so he's telling them that they have been appointed to bear fruit and their fruit should remain. Well, if you're going to say that this passage also applies to us, well then why do we get to verses 9 through such and such, and then it doesn't? Where what passage, what verse, what word tells us that? And so I think that it is this is where we've got to just say, you know what, I've got to go ahead and leave my preconceived notions, and I have them probably. I'm not gonna say that I don't. I try to get away from them. I know what I used to believe. I was on the other side. You can lose your salvation, man. You can walk away. All these different things. And so I started, okay, well, all right, let me look at this. Let me look at this. And then I was fully convinced, and then started reading the Greek, and he became even more convinced, and then started coming around certain scholars, actual real life scholars, and then becoming even more convinced, and then looking to try to challenge. So when you say, write a paper, when you guys, what we're talking about, if you write a paper, you've got to cover your bases. Why you can't just, you got to earn, as I said before, you got to earn something. You can't say X equals Y and not deal with all the other times where in the scriptures where X has equaled R. And so writing a paper arguing against yourself actually shores you up, helps you to kind of gird up what you're saying doctrinally. So, but yeah, send me the link to that, and I'll check it out. There are times when I'm sitting
Okay.
just laying in the bed, and I can I'll watch it as someone says watch it in
Well,
episodes.
I got one on John 15. I Anyway, there's a lot of things I can share with you, but one thing at a time. It's all
Okay,
right.
all right, brother.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good chopping it up with you.
Oh, no problem, bro. No problem. Okay.